So I have a big project brewing, but right now I'm kind of sourcing parts for it and it's going to take a little while. But in the meantime, let me show you what I'm working on. So I was at the scrapyard sourcing parts for the next build, and I came across this thing right here, and it was just sitting there, so I went ahead and grabbed it, and I already had this cool white 5 horsepower Briggs & Stratton engine. I'm going to be putting that right on the frame. What's cool about this bike is that it has an internal 3-speed hub. So pretty much if we hook up an engine to this, it's going to be a 3-speed. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is take off the rear wheel here, and then we're going to put another wheel along the side of it here, and that'll be used as like a pulley for a belt drive. To make our pulley hoop thing for the back wheel, I actually borrowed this 20-inch wheel from another bike. Once I have just a bare rim, I then take off the wheel from the actual bike. And then I try to figure out how exactly I'm going to do this. When in doubt, let's cut some cardboard. So to mount this thing, I think what I'll do is get 4 pieces of metal that kind of resemble this. I'm going to have to weld them to the outer rim. This will go on top. I'm not even in frame. Okay, cool. So like I was saying, I'm going to cut out 4 pieces that look like this cardboard thing I got, and then I'll weld them equidistant along the outside of these wheels. You can see each piece has 2 little holes in them. I was originally going to bolt these to the rims, but instead I'm just going to weld them. I then take off the tire of the actual bicycle wheel so that I don't ruin it while welding. It looked pretty nasty and rusty in there, so I decided to grind some of it out. And here's a little bit of video discontinuity with the wheel back on, and then me welding it with the wheel off. I'm not sure what happened there. I was actually very surprised about how true the hoop was on the rear wheel. Finally, I then put back on the tube and the rear wheel. I'm just seeing how we're going to put this wheel on there. And in doing so, I realized a couple things here. Since I welded this right to the wheel, the brakes aren't going to work because it's going to go like this and then hit up against the piece of metal, ride along again, and then hit up against this piece of metal. So it's just not going to work. Maybe we can put a disc brake on here on a later date. And then the other thing I was worried about is getting a serpentine belt that's not only to length, but also will fit inside of here. So we'll see about that once we get there. So now we need to readjust the frame so that fits that extra hoop. So first I'm going to cut this section right here, fit back on the wheel, and then see how much material I really need to bend. I'm going to mark these spots right here, so that's where I'm going to cut and bend. I call this the shark gill method. For the smaller tube, I actually bend up some solid rod. This is because the small tube was so thin, I'm worried that I can't weld it. Okay, so we got the back wheel all set up on there. It looks pretty cool. There's some weird bends going on, but we did what we had to do to get this extra hoop on there. So now that that's complete, what I want to do is cut this down tube right here, and then we're gonna bend up a new one that goes down, and this will just give us more room for the engine. And we're gonna go down, and then meets up with our head tube right here. So let's try that out. So first thing I need to do is cut off that down tube.
Then basically I'm just going to remake it with the bend on the bottom so that the engine fits nice and snug. So here's the new piece all bent up. Now I just need to resize it and then cut the ends off with a hole saw so that it's easier to weld. Next I'm going to chop off the upper tube here, and that's so I can actually fit the engine in between the two. I put a subtle bend on the top so that the spark plug can fit right under it.
Alright, so I kind of just placed the engine on the frame. The gas tank can't fit back here where it normally does, so I'm going to have to make some new carburetor attachment and put a different carburetor on there. And I'm thinking I'm going to put the gas tank, the original gas tank, back right here. But before that, I'm going to have to make a engine mount. And I think I can just design that and then cut it out with the plasma cutter to get it right where I need to.
Here I'm going to borrow some cardboard out of this box. Oh, and there's a little bit of a sneak peek of the next project I'll be working on, but you're not supposed to see that. Anyway, I'm going to use this cardboard to mock up the engine holes and the bearings as well. This is just so I get a rough idea of where I want the engine plate to be mounted. Next I place the phallic looking cardboard onto the frame. And now I have a better understanding of where I want the bearings in relation to the motor and the rear wheel. After that, I measure everything properly, then use the plasma cutter to cut it out. So here's how it turned out. I slotted the engine holes so that I can tighten the engine back and forth, and then I also have the holes for the bearings as well. I did have to come by with the grinder and cut off a little bit because it was interfering with the rear wheel. Next I put on the engine and the bearings just to see how I did. It turned out perfect. Now that I have everything where I need it, I'm going to measure out how big of a belt I need. Later that day I found myself at the junkyard. The pulley on this pump, or whatever it is a little bit too big, so I'm going to have to look somewhere else. There is a ton of awesome stuff at the junkyard, but I just don't need them for this project. After about 30 minutes of scrounging around, I found this seized alternator, and then I also found this serpentine tensioner. I'll use this pulley off of the alternator, and then if need be, I'll also use this tensioner. I went to the auto parts store and found a serpentine belt, but it was too big for my pulley, so I cut a little section off of it so that it'll properly fit. Unfortunately, the diameter of the serpentine pulley was a little bit too big for the shaft that I'm using. So I'll just end up welding it to the sprocket, and then it should be good to go. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty impressed by how true it turned out. Next, I position the engine mount and then weld it on. A quick little side note, instead of welding all these little cuts together, I ended up just using a solid rod, and this will save me a lot of headache of not having to weld those little slices. Lastly, I put on the engine so that I can mock up a chain. But you're going to have to wait till the next part to see how it goes.
Alright guys, so I was deciding on what to do next, and I wanted to work on the belt tensioner. I basically have two options. The first one is to have something like this, and basically it's just going to be a handle that you can go up or down, and then it engages the clutch. Or I was thinking also we could have a foot pedal clutch, and we can utilize the original pedals from the bicycle. You just push that down and then it tightens the belt. back here. But I'm going to leave that one up to you guys. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below on what we should do. Either a hand clutch or a foot pedal clutch. And whichever one is commented on the most, I will throw on here. But until next time, guys, I'll see you in part 2. Peace out.